The electrical phenomenon on this planet is about to uptick as well. The crop losses are one thing, but the electrical ferocity that you're about to experience and your electromagnetic being nature is changing as well. Your body itself, the way you think, your brain waves, everything connected to you is electrical in nature. So if the charge from the sun's changing, and that's the largest driver of our solar system, affects our planet at such a magnitude to change entire weather systems, jet streams, earthquakes, volcanism on our planet, how is it going to affect you?
Adapt 2030 Mini Ice Age Conversations covers changes in our climate due to a new and intensifying grand solar minimum. In the media, overlooking, downplaying, or burying cold weather changes occurring on our planet. This is in order to keep the global warming agenda steaming full speed ahead. I do this podcast and radio program because we need to begin conversations on how to adapt our food growing strategies long before 2030 as agricultural zones shift, affecting global crop output, but very few mainstream media outlets are talking about the most important issue of our time, cold weather crop losses. Our sun is going through a 400-year cycle, which has effects on our weather patterns as our magnetosphere weakens and the jet streams go out of flow. It's not CO2, it's not you, it's the sun. Are you ready to thrive in the grand solar minimum? Then join me for Mini Ice Age Conversations. I'm your host, David Dubine.
I think it's time for us to come back together again and help each other. There's going to be a lot of people that are unprepared for these mega changes that are coming. What else could you store around your house that you could eat? How much extra food do you have in your pantry? Even if you don't have that much money, rice costs very little at the moment. Beans are very inexpensively priced, but shall increase in price. Beans and rice, you can get multiple types of beans, green beans, red beans, black beans. You can look online for different recipes. You can go out to the store, spices, they hold forever, and you can get those for $1 each for a jar. Why don't you go to the farmer's market, learn how to dry it, and you'll put it in a jar yourself so you can keep it. I mean, basil's in season now. All these herbs and spices are in season. Oregano, you can go get it really cheap because it's harvest season. Learn how to use an oven and dry it. Learn how to then put it in maybe a coffee grinder and turn it into a powder and then put it into a jar. I mean, you don't have to spend a lot of money on food. I mean, we're so reliant on going to restaurants. We're so relying on hitting that fast food place. So reliant on getting finished products from the store where you just open it, throw it in the oven, open it, throw it into a pot and cook it up. But that's a little more expensive than you could do it on your own. So think about long-term food storage for you and your family. And there's so many options out there. And once you get good at it, you can start to rotate things in and out, and then you can build your supply as you move forward. Now, for me, I've been experimenting with sprouts a lot. So if you have, let's say, 50 pounds of beans, experiment first of what kind of beans sprout really well. I like to use lentils and green peas, and they grow out really fast, and the stems are really supple. Wheat itself, you can sprout that really quick, wheatgrass, and it turns really delicious, sweet tasting. So if you're stuck in your home, let's say for 10 days, and you know that you're going to be locked in there, you can instantly start growing sprouts. And those are mature and ready to eat, full-on green, couple 2-3 inches tall, in just about 7 days. So not only that, but you got your own fresh vegetables in your house growing, even though there's a snowstorm blocked you in outside. You got plenty of food in there. So what else do you need? You got superfoods with the sprouts going on. You can cook those a million billion different ways. Bean and rice, you can cook that a million billion different ways. And everything you have in the freezer there, if you lose electricity in your house, go outside and put your food outside in the cold where the snow is. That way, if your refrigerator loses power, it still doesn't matter and nothing will defrost because your home will stay warmer than it will outside. You can still put all your food outside and keep it fresh. You know, you can find things on store in the sale. What do you think about chicken? Sometimes they have a sale. You can find these foods that you can keep to add into what you have for the dried food storage inside your house. So always think about the fresh veggies first. You know, sprouts are so easy to grow. These are just kind of the simple solutions you're going to need to start incorporating into your life as we move forward deeper into this grand solar minimum. Absolutely going to need to know how to grow some of your own food too. This just-in-time delivery thing is going to be breaking down when we come into this new global economic crisis.
TrueLeafMarket.com. I really want to talk about growing your own food, which will be a necessity moving forward. There's so many ways that we can go about growing different types of vegetables that we're going to need. Microgreens are incredibly nutritious. They're super fast to grow. In less than a week, you can have something that you can eat. Also, sprouts. We can get those a little bit taller, a little more dense, a little bit larger volume on the vegetation mass coming off of there. So how do you know what kind of sprouts to grow? How about wheatgrass or herbs? What about different types of herbs that we can add to our foods? Now, what I just described to you, there's a full range of starter guides there at TrueLeafMarket.com for you to take a look at. Even if it's just for your own knowledge and you don't purchase something from them, at least get the information so you know how to grow microgreens, you know how to grow sprouts, you understand what some of the herbs are for. TrueLeafMarket.com. Use the link below and give yourself the gift of organic and heirloom seeds.
Will it continue? The magic investor, the central banks, they couldn't let us collapse. Just-in-time delivery revolves on credit. If there's no credit, like there was no credit in 2008 and 9 to get a new house, a new car, to get a loan, what will happen with the global shipping with credit to keep the food supply moving? See, these are the first little questions you need to think about. Okay, what's going to dry up in the supermarket first due to the economic woes? Jump back to 2008, and that would be a very good indication of what would stop first. Imported foods from overseas. Local foods will still be there, although the tomatoes are horrible that are coming from like Mexico and California. They have no flavor. They're almost like eating a piece of cardboard. Grow your own tomatoes and see the difference. What can you grow outside during these seasons? What can you grow in a windowsill garden? I mean, you're going to have to start experimenting. And we're still going to hear turkey. Okay, turkey, huge citrus exporter. They're down 30% due to inclement weather. So what else is going to be next on the chopping block when it comes to foods? Fish, I don't know. How are you with ponds? Do you know your local farmers? Do you know where the pond is? Do you know where your local water source is? If I said, hey, go get some water for me, do you know where to go to in your local neighborhood? See here, Mexico, sorghum. Sorghum is a great, by the way, if you don't know what sorghum is, learn about sorghum. It's way cheaper than a lot of the others out there for grains. It's incredibly healthy. It's a superfood in itself. It's got way more nutrition than almost everything out there, except for amaranth and those types of grains. And it cooks and it's sweet and it's really good. I love it. It's very fluffy and light if you prepare it. You can use it in almost any dish. It's really good, sorghum. But the problem is Mexico declining 58% on their sorghum harvest. 58% down. Syrian wheat output falls by 30% to a 29-year low. So it's not just, the Northern Hemisphere we're seeing with Russia, the United States, the losses and we're seeing over in Australia. Now we're seeing these secondary and tertiary suppliers. Like you don't think of Syria like a super big wheat producer. I know they've been in the war and everything's going on there, but they still kept their production up. But comparatively what they had, they're down a third over these last years. Over here into the stans, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Azerbaijan, down, down, down. Chinese are trying to import anything they can scrape together from all of these nations here. So they're showing the outbound from Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Afghanistan, parts of Turkey, Azerbaijan, and Kazakhstan, all going directed pipeline funneling over to China. So what does China know? Well, they're offline in Heilongjiang up near North Korea. They have lost most production up there. So look for China to start swooping wheat across the planet. Now, when they do this, of course, prices are going to go up. And it is just a show going forward here. Everywhere you look, they lost so much of their wheat. This is the stuff we eat. The rest of the wheat that's coming out is so poor quality, they're going to be using it for animal food. The stuff we eat to make pastas, breads, etc., that's the red winner. So look for gigundous, humongous, way up and up pricing on pasta in the store. Sentiment on corn price is increasing. 49% of people say yes, up from 45% the previous week. So we can start to see how things are rolling out here. Let's talk about vortices. I'm going to come back with vortices here, an electrical phenomenon. As the magnetosphere continues to decline, we're going to start to see more vortices as air masses are colliding out of place, let's say. And also the electrical charge needs to equalize. So as we come into summer in the Northern Hemisphere, in spring especially, is when you get a lot of thunderstorms. The ferocity of these thunderstorms is going to be exponential, and it'll be something that you will notice. And I can easily explain it to you, so then you can explain to others why the increases in electrical strikes and the amount of lightning that's being seen and just the intensity of the storm. The sun's charge was at a 3,600-year high, grand solar maximum. And I do believe this is what pulled a lot of the heating in the 1990s. It's peaked on that and started to just literally drop off a cliff. So when you think about equilibrium in state charge, our Earth was equaling that charge of the sun because we are electromagnetically connected to the sun. When the sun decreases its activity output, our planet is still at that higher charge equilibrium. So there needs to be a discharge to equalize again. And what you're seeing with the amount of sprites and upper atmospheric lightning, that is the discharge occurring. And then, of course, we get this terrestrial lightning and ferocious electrical storms, which are going to continue to increase and increase and increase. And this is why in my last video I talked about dolmens, underground cities, and stone structures. There were millions of these structures across our planet. Most of them have been refurbished or used for building construction materials. They've just been bulldozed over. Some of them are archaeological sites, as in Turkey. But they were everywhere. And you really need to wonder what they were running from and what they're hiding from. The electrical phenomenon on this planet is about to uptick as well. The crop losses are one thing, but the electrical ferocity that you're about to experience and your electromagnetic being nature is changing as well. Your body itself, the way you think, your brainwaves, everything connected to you is electrical in nature. So if the charge from the sun's changing, and that's the largest driver of our solar system, affects our planet at such a magnitude to change entire weather systems, jet streams, earthquakes, volcanism on our planet, how is it going to affect you? How are you feeling these days? Do you feel something's changed and you just can't explain it? How about others around you? Are others around you talking about the same phenomenon? Hey, I feel something's weird, but I just can't really put my finger on it. This is the state of our sun changing that you're feeling as well. And intuitively, Cliff High goes into talking about each human is intuitive, and combined what we talk about or what we read or what we write on the internet is us intuitively talking about these changes. And we're starting to see an enormous amount of articles coming out about grand solar minimum changes at the moment. We're all feeling it. We're all affected by the changes. Flagstaff, Arizona, that's kind of a warm place in the desert that we think of, right? Flagstaff, Arizona? Yeah, record snows. The National Weather Service says, oh, it's a bit unusual. But the local Flagstaff paper is saying is very unusual. Now here's something really interesting too. The UK has already been hit with some cold, and they're expecting, according to Piers Corbyn, the coldest in 70, 80 years to come to the UK this year due to the cooling temperatures in the Atlantic. But here we are. Invasive ladybugs infest British homes. Okay, these bugs are taking refuge in houses to build nests. What do they know? That it's going to be too cold outside. Hordes of these are coming in. I'm looking at this one picture where there's probably, 50 or 60 ladybugs on somebody's corner right up near their drapes, or they're trying to make nests. But what is driving all of these ladybugs inside? Do they feel something intuitively that it's going to be way too cold for them to survive outside and they should kind of weasel their way inside? Not sure. Hornets are also invading European homes, setting up nests there. Okay, what do the hornets know also? Why are they taking refuge in homes and not going into their traditional natural nesting areas? And when I want to talk about the migrating birds also, Minnesota, these migrating birds keep crashing into things. Now what that means is something with the way they're migrating, they're in the wrong place because they keep crashing into things. The whole town is, it says, befuddled by these birds. It seems that they have drunk margaritas. So the police chief says the birds seem tipsy, more tipsy than normal. They're trying to blame it on a berry that ferments, and it seemed to have fermented earlier than usual this year due to early frost, and then it came out and it fermented, and then these birds are dining on these. But prior to the arrival, birds were still flying into things. So it's kind of a good excuse, though. Birds getting drunk on berries, not being able to fly. But that's great. They weren't drinking before they were smashing into stuff. So what's on the rise with all these magnetic anomalies as well? And now we have these massive floods, too. You know, Majorca in Spain getting 9 inches of rain in 2 hours. This is a new record for them for floods. Multi-century cycle broken again. Rainfall. Europe. They called it the inundation. Right here. The news release is once in a 1,000-year flood. This has been categorized as. Now, what are the chances of the second once in a 1,000-year flood coming? Italy just had a once in a 1,000-year flood. Now we got Spain with a once in a 1,000-year flood. So this is the kind of weather extremes that are expected to intensify. What we're seeing now is nothing, and I tell you, there's really nothing yet. We're just at the cusp of the big changes coming. We're going to see in these next 2 years, there's going to be so much change. It's going to be like this every single event globally. Now what happens, and this is where I'm talking about towns being completely inundated and snowed under. What if this 9 feet of rain were to occur when it was cold enough for snow? You got to think about 1 inch of rain equals a foot of snow. So we got 12 inches in each foot. 9 feet of snow in a single snowstorm? I don't know. You think that would stop the transportation? Maybe. Now, if you follow Ice Age Farmer Christian, but he's also focusing on these same IPCC reports trying to limit your consumption of food, resources, and putting you into camps and relocating you so you don't consume so much. See, and I'm really curious how they're going to try to continue to move along with this just-in-time delivery and the food supply chain moving forward with the new economic collapse coming. I wanted to continue on with the floods here because we're starting to see these floods globally that are unprecedented. 13 inches of rain in 1 day. Sri Lanka, again, breaking records. They're calling it a once in a 500-year storm down there. We saw these same events occurring in India, once in a 500-year. They had once in a 1,000-year floods up in Kashmir, once in 500-year floods along the basin in the Terai. Italy had the Medicane. That's a Mediterranean hurricane. Biggest ever recorded, by the way. So you have to start to think, all right, so they're keeping records back, accounts from sailors of, these Medicanes are what sent Phoenician fleets to the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea. So they have a pretty good indication on when some super incredible, powerful Medicanes had come along. It's not that these things just started being recorded in the 1800s. You've got to realize the civilization around the Mediterranean is much, much older. They kept records. They know when fleets went down. They know how intense the storms were. They talked legend about these magical, mystical storms that engulfed the entire region, that anything that was anywhere just got wiped clean. But when Italy's coming out saying, it's the biggest storm in about 200 years or so, this Medicane is biggest we can record now, but there's talk of bigger storms back in the day. I'm going to put that on a multi-century grand solar minimum mark as well. I'm not going to put that down to CO2. What I'm looking for is this uptick in quakes that's happening around Indonesia and Papua New Guinea, because these are traditionally the volcanic areas that'll push up enough ash to at least cool the planet in some account. Now, will it be a year without a summer? Probably eventually in the future. Will it happen because of one single eruption at this time? Not really. But the uptick is absolutely expected. See, this is where they've already pinpointed all these last eruptions, like 1278, 535 AD, 1238 to 1248 AD, Tambora, the year without a summer. All of these eruptions that have huge global consequence occur during grand solar minimums in this exact same area. And now we're starting to see an enormous amount of activity down there again, so it seems to be waking up on its multi-millennia, multi-century cycle that it does. Krakatau up and blazing, lava cruising. It looks like a Land of the Lost lava scene down there. And it goes on and on. So if you can know where some of these events have occurred in the past, and you can start to map them out, and you start to see the upticks in these same areas again, which is unnerving. Europe's going cold with massive rains and floods. Look for all-time record snows in Europe again this coming winter. I mean, this is a point that is globally, they found that places in Germany and France were the very first places to show these massive changes first. Now we're starting to see these same exact patterns play out just 400 years later. Now, one thing that's intriguing for me is the earth changes, the cracks that are occurring, the sinkholes, the volcanic activity, the upticks in volcanism, the uptick in larger earthquakes at the USGS times. They always try to downgrade that because they don't want you to see the pattern of rising 7.0 quakes. Because if you're plotting it out on a chart, and if you use the first initial reading, not the downgraded readings that they give you to put out through the corporate media, you're going to find a massive uptick in 7.0 quakes and above. What you can start to expect is these growing seasons are going to shrink. And we're starting to see that already. This is exactly what happened during the Maunder and the Dalton minimums. These are kind of the best recorded minimums because they were in the 1640s, so there's pretty good records from that point. We can go back to the Sporer minimum, which was in the mid-1300s, early to mid-1300s. Some records coming out of there, some accounts. Sacha Dobler does a good job translating a lot of that into English and putting out the 14th century climate record report there on abruptearthchanges.com. And just go there, abruptearthchanges.com, and you can find the Black Death and 14th century crop loss. It's about a 100-page PDF that he put together. Incredible work. But the routine thing was the seasons had shrunk to the point where the crops were not able to mature in the fields before the first snows would come and the cold. Now we're seeing this to the point now where even with our modern machinery, they're not going to be able to harvest. I think about 1600s, they were still with oxen and trying to do by hand with the sickle and sheath. Okay, I understand that. That could delay. That could be very difficult to harvest. But we got modern combines having a difficult time pushing through. It takes it to a whole new level, like it did last year. It lasted longer, had much more flooding during the planting time where they were delayed, 6-8 weeks on the planting. They got it in the ground and they said, all right, if it stays at a certain amount of heat in the soil and we can get through the summer, we can get a good harvest in, giving us the growing season before the first snows and cold come. That didn't happen. In record snows across the northern hemisphere in so many places, right over the crops. They didn't even yield. They didn't even get to full maturation, and they're covered in snow.
This video is brought to you by our friends at TrueLeafMarket.com. Heirloom and organic seeds for any grow zone on our planet.